Roland vs Vergilius. If these two fought, who would come out on top? Is Vergilius really as strong as we think, or is he a fraud? I'll answer all of these questions in this video. Let's start with Roland. Of course, I'm talking about pre-library Roland because the library heavily skews the fight in his favor. So, in this video, I'll be focusing on Rampage Roland, his state right before the library, to make the fight more fair. I'll go over Roland's backstory and scale his power based on that. Roland became a fixer at a young age, having been taught to survive as one thanks to his grandmother. This early training gave him a strong foundation in combat and survival, which would later prove crucial in his career as a fixer. Roland was motivated to fight in the Smoke War for a chance at migration into a nest. This conflict would test his abilities to the limit, sharpening his instincts and giving him experience in battle that very few people his age could match. During this time, he met Salvador, who showed him the former L-Corp's singularity, causing him to realize the horrors that allowed the city to survive. This realization struck deep, as it not only showed him the brutal realities of the city, but also introduced him to the level of manipulation and power that forces its cruel system to function. This affected him greatly, and he became distraught with the city's ruthless cycle of violence, torn between his survival instinct and his growing disdain for the system he had become a part of. Nevertheless, Roland joined Charles's office, impressing its operator Charles enough for him to make Roland the office's effective operational leader. This role was a testament to Roland's exceptional strategic mind and combat prowess, as leading an elite team of fixers required more than just fighting ability. It demanded leadership, tactical thinking, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. It was there that he met his future wife Angelica, who was the Black Silence and the sister of Argalia, another color fixer. This connection placed Roland at the center of a powerful network of fixers and dangerous figures in the city, further elevating his status. All the while, he hid his identity behind a black mask, partially due to his grandmother's warnings and partially due to his shame at participating in the violence of the city, killing on others' orders. Despite this, Roland's skill and influence grew. At some point, he was involved in an Encephalin shipping deal, showcasing his ability to navigate the dangerous underworld, and even tricked a fixer called Pluto, a clear demonstration of his intelligence and manipulative prowess in addition to his combat skills. Under Charles's office, Angelica and Roland were responsible for the original defeat of the Blood Red Knight, a star of the city class Distortion. This alone speaks volumes about their strength, as stars of the city are among the highest tier threats in the city, capable of wiping out fixers and syndicates alike. Roland's ability to fight and survive against such a powerful entity proves he was already operating on a level far beyond most fixers. During this battle, Angelica was wounded, and in a rare moment of vulnerability, Roland took off his mask out of concern, the first time he had ever shown someone his face as a fixer. This moment solidified his bond with Angelica, but it also marked a shift in his ideology. Seeing him burdened by the city's problems, Angelica convinced him that he could only ever watch out for himself, shaping his self-interested worldview and leading to his catchphrase. The two grew closer and eventually married, leaving Charles's office. With Angelica by his side, Roland began to distance himself from the city's endless violence, at least for a time. However, things began to go downhill. Roland was denied the Nest migration ticket, which K-Corp and I-Corp had promised the veterans of the Smoke War. Despite all of his efforts, he was forced to live in the back streets of District 9, a brutal environment where only the strong could survive. The real breaking point came when Roland was sent on a final fixer mission by his former partner, Olivia, to District 25. While he was away, the pianist distortion manifested in District 9, leading to catastrophic destruction. Roland returned in time to kill the pianist and end the chaos, proving that his combat abilities were still top tier, but it was too late to save his wife. What followed was pure carnage. Consumed by grief and rage, Roland turned his fixer skill set against the city, unleashing a one-man war against those he held responsible. He targeted fixer offices, syndicates, and even the Five Fingers. The fact that he took on the Five Fingers alone and survived is insane. These groups are made up of fixers and combatants who are amongst the strongest in the city. Roland even donned his wife's Black Silence gloves, adopting the mantle of the Black Silence himself. During his rampage, he dismantled the scientists who kidnapped people and turned them into gears, wiped out a factory used by Jae-hoon to resurrect his son, eradicated the Thumb subsidiary Rumano Cartel, and even clashed with the Middle, a group few will dare to challenge. His former colleague, Astolfo, warned that his body count was so high it led to his demotion all the way down to a grade 9 fixer. But this wasn't due to lack of strength, it was purely political fallout from the chaos he had caused. Just how powerful is Roland? To figure that out, we first need to understand the scale of the city. Despite the name, the city isn't just some regular city. It's basically the size of a country but structured more like a continent, with each district having its own unique culture and way of life. On top of that, the city has a population of at least 300 million people. But why am I even bringing this up? Because the pianist didn't just wipe out some small neighborhood. He erased a huge chunk of a district, and considering that each district is about the size of an actual city, that means the pianist was powerful enough to wipe out a significant portion of the entire city. Now, before Roland even fought the pianist, the guy had already wiped 80% of District 9's population. That's an insane level of destruction, enough to nearly erase a city from existence. And since Roland was one who took him down, that automatically means Roland is at least stronger than the pianist. But here's the thing, this doesn't necessarily give us a clear idea of Roland's raw attack potency. The pianist wasn't destroying people with pure force, he was turning them into musical notes through some weird, abstract ability. So while Roland does scale above him, we can't just directly translate that into something like city level destructive power. Now let's talk about Roland's greatest strength, weapon mastery. He doesn't just stick to one weapon, he has mastered an entire arsenal, allowing him to adapt to any situation effortlessly. Starting off, we have the longsword, a well-balanced weapon, perfect for both offense and defense. But when he needs more reach, he switches to a spear, letting him keep enemies at a distance while striking with deadly precision. For sheer brute force, he can wield a hammer, crushing through armor and defenses with devastating blows. And if blunt force isn't enough, he's got an axe and mace, giving him both heavy cleaving power and bone-breaking impact. In close quarters combat, he can go for a claw and dagger, a fast and relentless combination built for speed and precision. If he needs a weapon with both cutting power and finesse, he has a katana, delivering quick, clean strikes with deadly accuracy. But Roland isn't just limited to melee. He has also mastered firearms. He carries a revolver and shotgun, allowing him to fight at both long and short range without missing a beat. For even more versatility, he dual wields short swords, striking with incredible speed while maintaining control over the battlefield. And when it's time to go all out, he brings out the Great Sword, a massive weapon that delivers overwhelming power with every swing. No matter the fight, Roland always has the right weapon for the job. His ability to switch styles seamlessly makes him an unpredictable and deadly opponent. Alright, let's talk about Vergilius. In Project Moon's Leviathan webcomic, we see just how crazy his strength is. He's literally slicing through buildings with just a few swings during his fight with Purple Tear. Now yes, he lost that fight, but let's not act like it was a fair one. Vergilius wasn't even fighting at full power. His main focus wasn't beating Eerie, it was protecting the orphanage kids from her attacks. He had to fight while keeping them safe, which is a huge handicap, and he still managed to keep up with one of the strongest fixers in the entire city. One of Vergilius' most important abilities is his highly advanced insight. As his title, Red Gaze, suggests, his perception is on another level. With just a few observations and quick analysis, he can immediately figure out what kind of person someone is, what they are thinking, and even their social standing. This ability allows him to quickly read situations and form effective strategies. For example, he was able to see through Kubo's intentions when he infiltrated Ringfinger's gallery, identify Schadenfreude's traits, and develop a strategy to take it down. Even Roland, who was wearing a mask designed to impair perception, felt as if Vergilius could still see it right through him, further proving just how sharp his insight really is. According to Vergilius himself, he can feel an unpleasant and overwhelming pressure guiding him in a certain direction, something he refers to as the flow. But what exactly is the flow? Vergilius' insight is so advanced that he can perceive multiple possible futures and instinctively choose the one most favorable to him. However, as revealed in his monologue at the end of Leviathan episode 16, there are many different flaws, and choosing the wrong one can still lead to disaster, even if it appears successful in the short term. In other words, while this ability is incredibly powerful, it's not perfect, a wrong choice can still cost him everything in the end.
After the second outpouring of light upon the city, a new combat system was engraved into the very fabric of reality.
This power is accessible to everyone and doesn't require ego or distortion. However, as always, the strongest individuals were the first to master its use. This new ability allows one to manifest rings of light, which resemble the Project Moon logo, and amplify attacks using the pure power of the mind and emotions.
A force known as Shin, the power of sin.
Now here's where it gets interesting for Vergilius' power scaling. Shin can enhance physical strikes, weapons, singularities, ego abilities, and even distortions. Iori trained an entire squad to wield this power, yet Vergilius cut through them effortlessly with a single attack after coating his gladius in rings of light. What's even crazier, he figured out how to use Shin just by watching Iori do it. And he is not the only one using this power. Damian straight up erased Cromer with one wave of his hand, charging his attack with 7 rings of light at once. Meanwhile, the Indigo Elder seemingly infused his harpoon with Shin before throwing it at Ricardo, proving just how versatile and destructive this ability can be. Vergilius' ego ability lets him manipulate blood, and he's got a ton of ways to use it. He can shape it into weapons, unleash slashes, or even hide inside pools of blood to move undetected. But like any ability, it has its drawbacks. If the blood hardens or dries out, it becomes much harder to use. Since the blood he manipulates gets consumed in the process, he constantly needs to replenish it from external sources. Otherwise, he'll run out and won't be able to keep using his abilities for long. Because of how his ability works, it's way more effective in large-scale battles against multiple opponents rather than just a straight-up 1v1 fight. So, in conclusion, I would say that Vergilius isn't as strong in a pure 1v1 fight, but he would still put up a solid fight. In a direct battle against Roland, he would lose, but just barely. However, in a different scenario where they are fighting in a crowded area, Vergilius could use the blood of the people around him to fuel his ego abilities and easily defeat Roland.